Welcome to Black Spring on this Tuesday. Hope everyone is doing well. I thank you guys for coming in and tuning in from wherever you are. And welcome to Summer of Dissent. And of course, around here, we'll have dissent from a full range, a full scope of dissent. We have dissent from editorials, op-eds, opinion pieces, and of course from you. And I think at times that's probably the best part of the show at times. So I'll also start out with just a couple of stories that we'll get into on today's Summer of Dissent. And for one, we'll be talking a little bit about economics. We'll talk about also some cultural elements, some of the cultural elements which are more detrimental in this postmodern kind of view of the world, or the attributes that we're seeing in the forms of protest and other ideologies. So we'll deal with a bit of an Agenda 21 piece for that. And then we'll also take a look at some things that are happening in the economy. And of course, why are those things important to you? Also, we will be taking a look at a bit of non-capitulation from a pretty well-known or fairly well-known civil rights attorney. And in fact, we've seen him recently in another, if I can say, discourse with another activist / professor. So I think we have plenty around the culture, the cultural war or the cultural dissent, as well as economy and opinion pieces. And without a doubt, I would like to give a shout out to Theology Forums. Hello, how are you? Shout out to Killer Whale Channels. Thank you so much, Killer Whale Channels, for coming in. Hope you are doing well. I will be supporting more channels this week, but I'm always glad to have you here. You are very much a valued member. So I'm also going to start with shout outs to the loyal patrons, of course, and just a heartfelt thank you to everyone. So there's a shout out for Killer Whale Channels, Patrick Jane Forums, Theology Forums, as well as Derek C. Williams, Sandy K, the Angel Munez Variety Show, and Chrysler Imperial H. So we're going to start with just our housekeeping, and then we'll jump into the show. So I've given you a little bit of the landscaping of where we will start today, and who knows where we'll wind up, because in fact, this is the Summer of Dissent, and where would we be without your guys and your dissent. So we will add, of course, and if there isn't dissent, then that's fine too. Sometimes it's interesting to have some dissent, and I think it's a healthy balance. And sometimes it can be a bit of a slippery slope. So we'll continue with some housekeeping. Once again, hope everyone is doing well, and that you are managing your freedoms and enjoying what you have. And as always, if you have other ideas, of course, we're about sharing ideas here. So welcome in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Shout out once again to Theology Forums, Killer Whale Channels. Also, please take a look at the community tab. I do have some exciting things that will be coming out. Also, if you haven't had a chance to look, just for the sake of, the Patreon memberships are available, and there is a pretty wide range of options there if you're interested. And of course, you are always valued here. Just there's a little bit more leverage, and of course, I throw myself and my resources at this thing, and it's nice to have loyal supporters, and it adds more value to the channel. So just always remember that you are valued on the channel. And so just keep an eye on the community tab. Let's see. Oh my gosh, Killer Whale channel. No, I did not see that. That's an excellent, that's more than interesting. That's more than interesting. I will be curious to see what that looks like. There's so many things springing up. Chrysler Imperial H. Thank you so much for coming in, Chrysler. How are you? I am hanging around, and I hope you guys can hear me. I am going to I will have hopefully that I will have eliminated all the delays and all the funny business that I've had with the echoes very soon. So if you do, if throughout the stream you start to hear something that's not quite, if it's not quite clean, if you will, let me know, and I will I will continue to work on it. But I'm coming to another resolve, so I think it's going to be cleared up. It's going to be better for everyone involved. Shout out to everybody. Hi, Rick Bose Rides. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that feedback, Killer Whale. I mean, Chrysler Imperial H. It says nobody can criticize BLM or they're racist. People getting fired and stuff. You know, it's, you know, the thing about it is all of these things that are happening are very much regressive. As I've said before, you know, as many people have said before, it's pretty cliche. There's nothing new under the sun. Everything they want to, instead of creating progress, they don't know what to do with freedom. So they just start recreating. You got to go backwards because you don't know what to do with what you have. You know, you create the government can create all these programs, but what are you doing for yourself and with the freedom that you have? What kind of decisions, what kind of choices are you making? I mean, is the government supposed to be responsible for you making bad decisions? We're supposed to make everything lawless so that you can continue to make poor decisions. Was there oppression in history of the United States? Yes, I think we can all come meet at the same point on that. But is it at the level? Is it where you are right now? What do you can start? I mean, I go back all the time. I'm a huge fan of self-sufficiency as well as my individual accountability, my own individual accountability and my own self-reliance and my own self-accountability. If I just do what I need to do and stop looking around at everyone else, because it's easier to focus on when you're looking at someone else, it's easier for some people to deal with other people's, to attack someone else, because it's taking the pressure, it's taking the reflection off of them. It takes the reflection off of them when they start to focus on someone else and start blaming someone else. I mean, I think I'm amazed that when you hear these instances come up, when it's crime related, well, did anybody call you? What happened? What got you to this point? If you were doing the right things, how did you wind up where you are? Shout out to Eric Chanel. Shout out to Eric Chanel. Thank you so much for coming in. And it would be really helpful on this platform if everyone could kindly hit the like button or the unlike button. It's, what can I say? It's Channelytics. So I'm just doing a little bit of housekeeping and we'll jump right in. Eric Chanot, shout out to you, Eric. Nice to see you. It says change the world by living right and lead by example. I say I can hear I same sentiment here. Like stop, it's leading by decadence is not something it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable, it's not healthy, it's not moral. It's destructive. It's very much destructive, and we're starting to see a change in trajectory from a lot of. I don't know why it took this long for there to be this kind of a shift. I'm starting to see after all of the. I think that there's going to be a shift in thought during this election season. Thankfully, it's starting to happen. Whether the mainstream media is not going to talk about it. They're not going to show you the alternative news sources and independent news. That's where you're going to get more raw. Are you going to get them taking a position? Yes, but are you still going? You're still going to get more perspective when you refer or when you consider other sources for your news, whether it's world news or whether it's local or national news. And I will be completely honest. Spending time in Europe, there were times where you're going to get a globalist view. They're a part of the globalist or the technocrats as well. I would not even get a centralist kind of view on some of the European networks. Now that was just last year. I could not, up until last fall, I couldn't get any of those. I couldn't get a balance. But I was always thankful because there were other alternatives. I knew of other alternatives, and I knew of other resources so that I can get closer to the truth or what's happening on the ground. And there are more grassroots and independent reporters or journalists or citizen journalism that's going out here, and they're doing the work. We're not all card-carrying journalists from the School of Journalism on the East Coast, or we're not of those schools. But that doesn't mean that you're not taking a risk in doing it. Yes, you are. So shout out to everybody that's in the stream. It's also something that I want to share with you that I don't normally do, but I think maybe even if I just share just a portion of it, I think it's an interesting perspective, and I think it's someone who's actually lived through many of these times. I refer to the 1960s a lot, but then I don't really bring in a whole lot about the actual, like the Black Panthers. I think that many of these millennials or many of these kids, I think that they think there's somehow they think there's some type of Renaissance movement in the streets, when in fact, actually, they're just still stepping stones for a movement that's just as, or a campaign that's just as destructive or just as detrimental as anything in the 60s or before that. I've said it before. They don't have real agendas. They don't have, not that I'm subscribing to Black Panthers or any type of radical activism, but I think that during those times, I think that they were very organized. In fact, I think the Black Panthers, they had editorials, they had programs. They were well organized in their radical, some of the radical views that they had, but then they had agendas that they actually did try to bring things to the community, but it wasn't destroying the communities. They weren't out shoulder to shoulder with some domestic terrorist or someone. I don't think they were thankless people. They weren't a thankless group. And a lot about that culture doesn't really get out. You have to do your own research and your own due diligence to even find out what more than just more than what they were designated by the FBI, and how they were in, even that group was infiltrated. So I don't think these kids draw on any real history. They're just drawing on emotion, and they're drawing on their utopian change the world, drawn on the critical theories, and that's all they can think of. I mean, I don't know, on the Chaz watch, I guess we'll take a look at some point. We'll keep following those stories to see if there are other cities that are being, infected by this whole thing. All right, so I think we've got that pretty much covered. Hope everybody's doing well. Thank you so much for tuning in on this segment. I'm just going to check the chat here really quickly, and then we'll get started. Hope you guys are all doing well and having a great Tuesday, or as good as it can be, or even if it's too early to tell. That's always nice to. It's always nice to see that. Shout out to some of the old friends that I see in the stream. It's nice to have you guys in there. And if you could like, subscribe, share, if you dare, please make sure you're still subscribed. That's another thing that I have to add to housekeeping is retention. I have to deal with retention on a direct basis. Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. Thank you so much. Let's see. All right. So what do we have here? Okay, I'm going to read this. Chrysler says, I was watching another channel yesterday for somebody actually went into the autonomous zone live streaming. I don't know. Maybe I saw that. I don't know what the outcome of it was. I don't know what the outcome was, but I was like, wow, but I'm going to be honest, Chrysler, I think it's going to take that kind of bold. I think that if I can say this, maybe the American patriots, maybe there should be a new vibrant, a new renaissance or revitalization of American patriots, the one that includes everyone that wants to be a part of America. Like, it's already here for you. If you don't embrace it, then what can anybody else do for you? If you want to focus on your skin color, you'll find out very quickly that it's not sustainable, and it's not going to give you all the things that you are responsible as an individual for. You're not going to get those things. Like when people say things like Black agenda and that kind of a thing. Okay, but what about just having an agenda that's sustainable, that's productive, that's intuitive, and that works well, that helps you excel and do what you need to do for you and your family, or help you achieve your goals. I mean, we've had that's why I'm talking about the regressiveness that really, and if you look at statistics, you don't see the progress. You've seen more destruction than you see the progress. And I'm actually going to bring out a shout out to the Definition of Anarchy. How are you doing? Thank you so much for coming in. Shout out to the Rapper 10,000. Rapper 10,000 says, New Mexican militia has take out one Antifa, but the New Mexican mayor defended them. Ooh. That's a lot. That's a lot to chew on. Chrysler Imperial H says the channel name was Wake Up, was the channel name. It's interesting. I mean, I think we're getting, there's a lot of information out here. There's a lot of disinformation campaigns as well. So, sometimes you might think that you're on to something, but then you find out, okay, you've been led astray. You've gone down the wrong path, so to speak, or you maybe just took a small detour and you had to get back on. But I think we all can, I think most people that are informed are going to be able to make those adjustments and not be completely derailed by all the disinformation campaigns and all the wonkiness that's going on. So thanks so much. Shout out to everyone that's in the stream. It's nice to have you guys here as always. Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. Shout out to the Rapper 10,000. Shout out to the Definition of Anarchy. Shout out to Eric Chenot, Theology Forums. Shout out to Killer Whale Channels. Shout out to Rick Bowes Rides. Let's see. I think that's just about everyone that's in so far. So we'll go ahead and get started. And then, like I said, I will open up the lines, but it'll be just a bit. We'll do that towards the end. But I'll try to move through some things that are a little bit, some things that are more statistical or fact-based kinds of things, and I'll provide those links for you. So thank you guys so much for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. All right. Thank you guys so much for coming in and for all your patience on the housekeeping. You know, it's housekeeping. It's definitely a necessary evil, and I appreciate you guys for all your patience on that. Shout out to the Rapper 10,000 coming in with a comment. He says more militia groups need to form up against these leftists and defend these statues. Antifa is a hate group so fixated on their race and hatred of the country. Thank you for that. The Rapper. And Chrysler says figure out a way to cut off the funding for this Antifa's crude, and they may disappear, but got to cut off the funding. Yeah, that's interesting. I think you're right. It was like a mini operations. I mean, I think I heard a comment, and then I'm paraphrasing. I'm not even assigning it to anyone, but it was a comment that I heard in some coverage that the FBI was interested. I've heard that, of course, even regarding the Chaz colony. I'm not sure what that is, or it's a temporary. Not sure where they are on that right now, but I know that they had an emergency in which, of course, guess who they had to? They ended up having to call first responders, into their utopia quickly turned dystopia. So yeah, we'll see how much longer this encampment survives. Let's see. Shout out to the Rapper 10,000. Says, did you see that next news network video of the Antifa leader? No, I have not. I haven't seen it. So shout out to everybody that's in the stream. I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to start with something that was quite stunning for shock value. You may not be familiar with this lawyer, no matter what station or what channels or medias that you've seen, but I'm going to share this. And in fact, a previous video that I showed with Dr. Cornell West and Leo Terrell is in this interview as well. So I'm going to show you this. I will tell you, I saw the shift in Leo Terrell, but it's so abrupt. It's just like everything is so abrupt. It's right on, but there's no time for you to react to it at the time. All you can do is just you can take your time and respond, or you'll either way. You said they call it chop now. I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with that. Thanks, Rick Bose Rides. So yes, but I'm seeing this is a civil rights attorney, and he has always been pretty intense on Fox News or wherever you see him. But in this case, it was quite shocking and quite stunning. So I will, without further ado, I will bring you that. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn.
Democratic Party's never been worse. While many call for the removal of Confederate monuments around the country, Democrats, they're totally silent on the skeletons in their own closet. Let's take a look at Nancy Pelosi. Well, it was her father who oversaw the dedication of 2 Confederate monuments in Baltimore, Maryland. Will she now disavow the actions of her very own father? So far, not a word. By the way, nor has the media mob dared to even ask that question. Meanwhile, you might know this, the Russell Senate building is named after a noted Democratic segregationist. Will Senate Democrats now demand that it be renamed? Do they even care? After all, one of the top Democrats in the Senate was none other than Robert Byrd. Yeah, he was the former poobah of the Ku Klux Klan. That guy. We refer to him as Robert KKK Byrd on this show. 2010, Hillary Clinton, she called Robert KKK Byrd her friend and her mentor. Take a look.
Today, our country has lost a true American original, my friend and mentor, Robert C. Byrd. Senator Byrd was a man of surpassing eloquence and nobility.
Imagine if Donald Trump had said that about somebody like Byrd. Of course, the presumptive Democratic nominee, the forgetful Joe Biden, he revered Robert KKK Byrd also, even eulogized the former Klansman during a memorial service. Let's watch.
Although I and my colleagues behind me revere the Senate, Robert C. Byrd elevated the Senate. Well, if there was ever a senator who was the embodiment of his state, if there's ever a senator who, in fact, reflected his state, it was Robert C. Byrd. He was fiercely devoted, as you've all heard, to his principles. Even once he became power, he always spoke truth to power, standing up for the people he proudly was part of.
Actually refreshing to see the ever-forgetful Joe get out a few sentences without, stumbling all over them. Now, Biden also has a long, troubled history on race relations, especially with comments like this. Take a look.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
Okay, those remarks apparently causing some pretty widespread anger. Let's take a look.
Well, I think that Uncle Joe knows that he misspoke. He got a lot of phone calls about that, and he will not be making that mistake ever again in his life.
Here's reaction. Civil rights attorney Leo Terrell, Salem, nationally syndicated radio talk show host Larry Elder. Larry, you know the history of all this better than anybody. You got an encyclopedic memory of a lot of this. Give us other examples.
Well, in the case of Mr. Nancy Pelosi, her father dedicated a Confederate statue when he was a politician in Baltimore. When is this thing going to stop? Barack Obama, I understand from his mom's side, had slave owners. From his dad's side, he came from a region of Africa where a lot of slave selling took place. And so should we take Obama's name off of every building because of his connection to slavery? The whole thing is absolutely, totally absurd. And let's not call this a cancel culture. I call it a revenge culture because that's what this is about. Revenge. And never mind, slavery was something that took place in every corner of the earth, practiced by every person, every race on the earth. And the Barbary pirates took more whites out of Europe, out of the Mediterranean area, than did European slavers take blacks out of Africa to the colonies. So when are we going to stop all this nonsense? We should take advantage of the available opportunities we have right here in this country. It is why people are braving shark-infested waters leaders for crying out loud to get here because this is the greatest country that God ever created. We have to stop whining and realize we have a tremendous amount of potential here, and let's get to work.
You know, if you look at the 64 Civil Rights Act, or Civil Rights Attorney Leo Terrell, and the 65 Voting Rights Act, my memory serves me correctly, and remember Southern Strategy as a protest against the Brown v. Board of Education landmark Supreme Court ruling. What you see is a lot of Democrats, they were all against that. A lot of that was the Republicans that helped Lyndon Johnson. The Party of the Emancipation Proclamation, that too was the Republican Party. We're really going to have history. Every 2-4 years, what do we have the Democratic Party say about Republicans? Racist, sexist, la, la, la. Go through my whole list. Your reaction.
You know, Sean, this is why I stopped drinking the Democratic Kool-Aid. I can't take this hypocrisy anymore. It's ridiculous. Richard Russell from the South was against integration. He was opposed to anti-lynching bills. This is what bothers me about this whole thing. That the Democrats, just because there's a D in their name, they could be a racist. That statement by Joe Biden is so offensive, and then you get Spike Lee out there saying it's okay. That's offensive. If any Republican said the same thing, they would be in trouble, big trouble. Joe Biden gave us the crime bill in 1994. President Trump gave us the first step. The bottom line is this. I don't need the Democrats to insult me or try to placate me with African garb, Nancy Pelosi. Pass some laws, pass some reform, show me something other than some type of condescending act just because you're a Democrat. That doesn't follow anymore. Last point, Democrats, please leave the party. If you want law and order, you cannot get it from the Democrats.
That sounds like you're voting for Donald Trump, Leo Terrell. Sean voting for Donald Trump?
Sean,
Oh, Larry, this is a very important question. That's for Leo.
I'm not voting for Joe Biden. I am not voting for Joe Biden. And if he puts Kamala Harris on, I will vote for Donald Trump.
Larry.
Sean, the reason I've done this documentary called Uncle Tom, which comes out on June 19th, you can go to uncletom.com and check out the trailers. The reason I've done this is because there's such ignorance about the history of the Democratic Party. It's not just right now. They opposed the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment. Democrats founded the KKK. I didn't say Democrat Party. Democrats founded the KKK. And as a percentage of the party, more Republicans voted for the Civil Rights Act of 64 than did Democrats. And this business about they switched BS. Of all the Democrats who voted to get the Civil Rights Act, how many switched to the Republican Party in the Senate? One, Strom Thurmond. That's it. The South remained Republican, didn't become Republican until almost the 90s. It is not true that all of a sudden the racists en masse left the Democratic Party and went to the Republican Party. That's a line that you often hear, and we address that in my documentary, UncleTom.com.
Let me point out one thing. I'm asking every Democrat to do your research on Richard Russell and Robert Byrd. Robert Byrd, who Clinton and Biden eulogized, was a Klan member. That means he was anti-Catholic, anti-Jew, and anti-Black. You have to leave the Democratic Party.
Leo,
get out of there.
All right.
And Leo, not just a Klan member, Leo, he was a recruiter. He was a Kliegel. He recruited others. He wasn't just a regular Klan guy. He was an executive. Yeah.
Don't let the Democratic Party trick you, please.
All right, Leo, Larry, thank you both.
Well, now Nancy Pelosi is requesting that 11 Confederate statues be removed from the Capitol.
All right. Thank you guys for taking that in, which was a bit much, you know. It's the Democrat Party is steeped in quite a bit. I don't know, should I call it racism or should I call it white guilt? Or, you know, their resolutions have been, their resolve has been a part of the white guilt, destroying the views of humanity and basically regressing. It contributed to the detriment and the regressing in culture in the Black community. So what I'm gonna say, this kind of brings me to my other part of the segment today, is what's next? What's next? Are we gonna have, what do you think they're gonna go after next? You see all these entertainers. We talked about yesterday Lady Antebellum, who has changed her name now because of the Antebellum, the Association of the Deep South, and as if you're not familiar with the antebellum, many of the homes in the South are antebellum in style, which I think the word means pre-war. I think that's the definition that's assigned, maybe at least one definition, the pre-war. But the style of the homes, of course, many of those homes were on huge plantations. But their explanation, you can fact check this if you want, was something along the lines in which this was maybe a place in which maybe one of their first, they did it, maybe a first cover shoot or a first something. It was something of a sentimental or a something of a founding. It's something that's related to the group and their and at their in the beginnings, in their infancy and development. So, but they've capitulated. We've got this whole culture of capitulation happening. But what's next? Okay, if you're yanking down statues and these things, what's next? What do you guys think? Do you think they're going to go after the American flag next? Is that what we're doing? It's very sad that this whole social justice postmodernist culture is really ready to destroy everything. All these ideologies, all these small ideologies together make a huge impact. It's a blow. It's delivering, or it will deliver a blow to not only American society and culture, but to the values. And without your values, who are you? Who are you? You just keep getting further and further along, and you end up with this gradation is what you end up with. And I've said before, I love the idea of spectrum. I love the idea of color. I love the idea of shades. I love all of these things when it comes to arts and humanities, but how much of that can be placed on society, a society that already had values? Some of the things about our society or our values are what is why we've sustained. We might be a young nation, but we've sustained what we have because of those unique founding principles. It's very unique. We've seen other nations fall when they started to give in to less, when they started to think less truth, less history, less policy, less anything. And then they have dictionary changes every day. And I've seen that in Europe before. In France, I've seen it in France. They'll change a dictionary meaning in a second to what's according to whatever's going on. If they want to change the definition of social distancing, or it might be something even more significant than that, but that's something that their culture is attuned to. When you talk about lockdowns or social distancing, in fact, I know that they've changed. They added a term for that. But it's like it's a living and breathing cultures are the ones that are economically in flux. Their values they don't have any. They've given them up for this and capitulated along the same lines of what's being promoted here right now. So with that said, I'm also going to go to another point from another group. We talked about this earlier, the Great Reset. We talked about it from the economic and, of course, the sociological society. We've talked about the Great Reset. And when they talk about the Great Reset, they're not just talking about economy. They're not just talking about that. They're also talking about socially. So then you get into all of these groups. Okay, so this particular article, that we're going to bring that one directly from the weforum.org. And I'm going to actually share this one on the screen with you. Hope everybody's doing well out there. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I always appreciate each and every one of you for coming in. So I'm going to share this screen with you. So this is going to you start to see the agendas that are at work, and they have a plan. it's more of a globalist. It's a part of the UN Agenda 2021. I mean, they're making huge efforts, and it's showing up everywhere. And I think it's only going to intensify. Let's see. I'm going to do one comment and then I'm going to move on to the story. These college students and teachers are doing this for their sick utopia, but gravely misunderstood why countries like the Roman Empire failed. Also, diversity is not a strength, it's a weakness. Thank you so much for that, the rapper 10,000. So I'll go ahead and start. I'll share the screen with you guys. Shout out to everybody that's in the stream, or anybody that's riding down the street with their windows down, or I don't know. I'm sorry to give you, that's a little down home kind of perspective, but it's a real one. So, and here, this is why this is a summer of dissent, because it's the most, I think that dissent is intense. We have dissent all the time, but I think there's something very unique about this summer. Hence, I decided to call it the summer of dissent. So here we are. Here we have your article that comes from the weforum.org. And this was written by John Miller. Now it's entitled Great Reset, Why LGBT plus Inclusion is the Secret to Cities Post-Pandemic Success. So when you read these articles, you start to understand that you start to see where this is coming from. It becomes predictable. All right. So according, you see, you have this visual here. It looks like the street crossings are all shaded out. Research shows that LGBT-friendly cities are happier and more innovative, therefore more likely to recover post-COVID-19. So I'm going to continue with this. This is quite a bit of dissent, so here we go. Now, they're making a few points here. It says the economies that are more inclusive are better placed to recover from the shocks of the COVID-19, generally what I said on the previous statement. A strong positive correlation exists between the LGBT plus inclusive and economics resilience. In particular, cities that embrace diversity may reap a, quote, inclusive dividend, end quote, as they begin to rebuild their economies. As the world continues to grapple with the unprecedented global health crisis of the COVID-19, the scale of the related global economic crisis is becoming increasingly clear. We are facing the sharpest economic contraction since the Great Depression in the 1930s, according to the United Nations, threatening to roll back decades of progress in the fight against poverty. At the same time as taking emergency measures to minimize the immediate economic impacts of the pandemic, governments around the world are looking to position themselves for recovery. A new analysis of economic resilience offers a potential clue to which economies may be able to recover faster. LGBT plus inclusion is correlated to the resilience of a country's economy. Wow. All right. So just for example, you'll see, I may enlarge this, so if you're interested, but I may put it into the box. This is going to give you, they're going to give you their graphics. I don't quite know not familiar with the source on the statistics here, but I'm sure you'll find those interesting. But of course, at your leisure. The analysis by Open for Business, a coalition of companies advancing LGBT plus equality, shows a strong positive correlation, 0.67, between how resilient an economy is and how accepting it is of LGBT plus people in this chart. This is a significant finding. At 1 point increase in social acceptance suggests a 3-point increase in that economy's economic resilience index, even when controlling for GDP per capita. Could LGBT plus inclusion be a secret ingredient for economic resilience? So I'm not sure if you guys can see this thing. Let's see. Shout out to you, Killer Whale Channels. So I'm going to move through this pretty quickly here. All right. So it says, the answer may lie in the world's cities. Cities have been at the front line of the pandemic, and they may hold the key to global economic recovery. The connection between economic resilience and social inclusion is particularly clear in urban areas. There's a growing body of evidence that LGBT plus inclusive cities have stronger, quote, innovation ecosystems, end quote, higher levels of entrepreneurialism, and they are better able to attract talent and provide a high quality of life, making them well placed for economic recovery. So here they're giving you more examples. So this is but I'm saying, and you can look at these statistics. I'll finish out this particular article here, but I'll provide the link in the stream so that you can see if you are interested in this. But it says, second, cities with greater concentrations of talent and skills are more competitive and resilient, and attracting top talent is a priority for cities. However, cities that are not LGBT plus inclusive are much more likely to suffer, quote, brain drain, end quote. A 2018 study showed that cities and countries with anti-LGBT plus policies or attitudes are much more likely to lose their talent. Examples include Accra, Baku, Kampala, Kuala Lumpur, Lagos, Nairobi, and Moscow. In some of these cities, according to the study by the OECD, more than half of all recent graduates are likely to immigrate. Evidence shows that the diversity feeds a, quote, clustering effect, end quote, for young talent, according to research by the economic Enrico Moretti, quote, it's a type of growth that feeds on itself. The more young workers you have, the more companies are interested in locating in that area, and the more young people are going to move there, end quote. The LGBT plus inclusion seems to play an important role here as a signaler of openness, diversity, and culture. All right, and the final on this. The economic shock of the pandemic are of an unprecedented magnitude. I think they meant unprecedented magnitude here. Maybe, perhaps. And the road to recovery will not be easy. However, we can expect that cities that have embraced diversity may reap an, quote, inclusion dividend, end quote, as they build to rebuild their economies. The strength of their innovation ecosystems and an abundance of talents may make them more agile in the face of downturn and better able to exploit new opportunities presented by the disruption. There's a strong message here for governments who are using the pandemic as a pretext for intensifying discrimination against LGBT plus people. Recent weeks have seen a surge of anti-LGBT activity around the world. The expansion of the, quote, LGBT free zones, end quote, in Poland, for example, or the anti-trans legislation in Hungary. In Kampala, 20 LGBT plus Ugandans were arrested on the pretext that they had violated laws used to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Political and religious leaders in the US, Ireland, Israel, and Iran have publicly blamed the LGBT plus community for the pandemic, and activists report that this has led to the rise in hate crimes. The connection between the resilience and inclusion is widely accepted by policymakers. The World Bank describes, quote, inclusive communities, end quotes, as a key dimension of sustainable, resilient cities. The OECD identifies, quote, inclusive society, end quote, as a driver of resilience in a city. The IMF contends that an economy is, quote, more fragile and less resilient when it is not inclusive, end quote. A report by, you guessed it, UN Habitat finds that inclusion is required for a, quote, successful urban resilience agenda, end quote. Now is the time to be embracing LGBT plus communities, not stigmatizing them. Creating inclusive society isn't just the right thing to do, as the evidence shows. It's an important part of an economic strategy focused on resilience and recovery. Well, if you could get through that was, there you go. There you go. You have, that's a part of the UN agenda to raise. They're trying to, you're hearing it all the time. They want to create a better world, to to equalize things. But in order to do many of these things that they're trying to do, you need to infringe on other people's rights so that this person can feel like this. You just keep doing, you keep infringing on other people's rights in order to get what you call equality. So, I just think that the LGBT plus movement, by now, they started out saying that they just wanted a few things, but look what it's turned into. Like we've got this whole white guilt thing going on. We've got some of these things, I think I've heard something of, this is a plural of hearsay, about even the LGBT, not the LGBT, but the BLM, even potentially being some type of religion or whatnot. And that's not something that I'm going to be on board with, or any of these ideologies. You're forcing things on people, controlling people, controlling the outcomes, or I'm not exactly sure what it's about, reshaping this world in their image. So shout out to everyone in the stream. I'm going to, right now, I think I'm going to put a link into the stream. Hope everybody's doing well. And just really quickly, I'm going to do a shout out here. Shout out to Killer Whale Channels, Chrysler Imperial H, Theology Forums. Shout out to Patrick Jane Forums, the rapper 10,000. Thank you so much for coming in. Rick Bose Rides. Thank you so much. Shout out to the Definition of Anarchy. Shout out to Eric Chanot. Shout out to Theology Forums. Let's see. I think I've got just about everyone covered in that one. So I know it's full of rhetoric and propaganda that they're trying to they're claiming that they're trying that, but there again, what I can see, let me read your comment here. That is so nonsense. So nonsense. Supreme Court only bended the knee for them just the SJWs. The BLM was used to push this part of that agenda. Well, see, that's what I'm saying. Now they're going to use, I don't know if anyone can recognize, if people start to recognize, they're starting to use all these other this little assortment of groups. They're using them as stepping stones as well. Do you actually think they actually care about the prosperity of these people that identify and with this idea, or or this lifestyle or that lifestyle? Do you actually think they actually care about those people? They don't care about the populace as a whole. There is an agenda for all of it. So now they're going into their phase. I mean, they've just written this whole script and they're trying to force it on everyone. If you don't read it, I think that's probably going to be the next thing, that they're probably going to start seeing LGBT plus protests springing up everywhere. I'm not suggesting that they're going to resort to any type of violence, but there again, you've got this whole agenda. All the representatives, all the assortments will be lined up, or will take their place on the stage of protest, and then they'll be infiltrated by somebody else to push the agenda, and then it may become violent. But I just don't see we're going to see an end to all of this. I think a lot of things are going to end up in court, and I can see, but it's going to get sticky. But I think there's I know that the Trump administration has appointed about 160 federal judges. I think, your rights are going to end where somebody else's begin. I don't think so. You're going to have to fight for them, or you're going to have to stand up if somebody's bringing things into your community that you don't agree with. And that's something, I think that's something that I'm going to be doing. You're going to need to address things on a local level, because whether you have kids or not, they're going to be going to public schools where the curriculums are already changing to include more of a sex ed at the kindergarten level. This is all coming down from the UN agenda. And the Democrats are in lockstep. And I would probably say some of these rhinos, some of these Republicans are just as full on in as well. So you're going to have to fight. You're going to have to use your own discernment and figure out what it means and how to be free, or how to maintain the freedoms that you have by using your own voice. So keep an eye on the community tab. And yeah, because I think, this whole thing that the tag end of the soul of America that I keep hearing, that's going to be a fight for the next, beyond this election season. The soul of America is it's always at risk. It's under siege. It's going to remain that way. And then I had someone ask me, well, is it futile? Eventually, we're going to be overtaken by this force, or these forces, or these technocrats, or, by the elite. Well, I can't say that it's not a strong force. I can't say that. I know I do believe there's a lot of corruption. I do believe that there's many things going on, but I do think it's on the individuals to do your own part. Do your own part beyond a ballot box. You can't defend it with a once every 4 years. You have to keep it, I don't know, what should I say? You got to keep it fresh. Yeah, you got to keep it fresh. And I think that's kind of a tag off of, you got to keep it fresh or it goes stale. And I think many people have relied on it going stale, and the American people being docile and being demoralized, or not thinking for themselves, not having their own, not even being kind enough to have their own way to describe things, or their own language to describe some of these things that you are being fed from the news. So shout out to everybody in the stream. I'm going to put the link in right now. Hope everybody's doing well on your Tuesday. Once again, I'd like to ask if everyone could hit that like button. Oh, what I also would like to do, because we're just a few days from the premiere of the Uncle Tom. Now, I don't know how much traction this film is going to get. I know that I'm more than interested and more than curious about it. In fact, at some point I meant to have somebody, well, I won't spill the beans on it, but that film, I'm actually very curious about it. I think it's very interesting, the cast, and I'm going to show one of the trailers from it just for kicks, because I think today's the 16th, and I think it premieres on the 19th. So on Friday, I'm not sure where that's going to be. I'm not sure the access to that, or if it's going to be available, what mediums it's going to be available on. But I think it's definitely worth watching, and it's definitely worth, with all the things that are going on, it might offer, I'm sure it will offer the history and the insight that the Black community doesn't have. We've had a lot of propaganda, education. We've had a lot of myths. We've had a lot of conjecture that we've learned, and none of it really, and it's less about, unfortunately, it's been less about freedom and more recreating. We recreate oppressive things and demoralization inside of our communities. I mean, we do it to each other, because it's just been had such a great influence and a negative influence. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share the trailer with you guys. Shout out to everybody that's in the stream. Hope everybody's doing well on today. Let me see. I'm going to do this. Copy. Okay, so yeah, what I'm putting out right now. Okay. All right, so what I'll do is I'll go ahead and share with you. I'm going to share with you this trailer. Hope everybody's doing well and that you are enjoying your Tuesday wherever you are, or you're finding some productivity. Okay. So this is, I think there are several trailers, but I'm going to show this one. It says here, there's a little bit of a caveat, a top link that says that the Uncle Tom film goes live June 19th. Stay tuned for details. So I'm going to be staying tuned for it, but I just thought maybe I'd go ahead and share this one.
I don't remember the actual day, but I remember the emotion that I felt when it happened.
I'm often asked, was there an epiphany? I started asking questions.
As I became more politically aware,
A lot of the way that I saw things began to change.
All of this information I've been taking in for several years.
The continuation of these kind of contradictions.
I had bought into all of these lies.
You begin to see what the real agenda is.
That's usually how that red pilling process begins.
Black America is starting to get it.
People are starting to realize what's going on.
Okay, so actually I'll show you, that one's a very quick one. This one's about the same length, but, well, maybe it's not, maybe it's not.
I focus on 3 things. Belief in God, belief in myself, and my belief in the United States of America. Being a Black conservative is just natural. It's what my family raised us on. Faith, family, individual responsibility, education, service to the nation, an entrepreneurial mind.
Being a business owner in America is one of the greatest privileges of being an American.
I think Black Americans should believe and uphold the ideas of constitutional inherent rights.
I always felt that if I worked hard, that I could overcome the circumstances of my life. I never felt that because I was Black or I was poor or a woman, that I couldn't do something.
Humans are naturally conservative. You grow up being told to work hard for what you got. You don't grow up being told you're going to get something because you just want it. Like, you ain't got to work for it. But Democrats, they say, hey, we give you everything for free. That ain't reality.
Okay, so that is a bit of, that's just, it's quite a bit of a teaser. I'm very curious to see what they will actually, what will be covered. I'm going to take a look once more and see if there's not another. I think maybe there were multiple trailers. So I think we covered these 2, maybe not this one.
Most people are completely oblivious to the history of the Democratic Party.
The party of slavery,
The history of the Democratic Party.
Jim Crow laws, they're erasing all of the history of this country.
They want to cover up history.
The real history, not the revisionist history.
If you are educated,
Black people have been taught
A narrative that has been created.
you're actually miseducated.
And that's when I realized I've been lied to. I had been misled.
it unraveled everything that I knew to be true.
Okay. All right. So maybe you're curious. Shout out to you, Killer Whale Channels. Thank you so much for being here. You guys get to know each other. I just want to take this time to kind of loosen things up. I think I did put a link in the stream for anyone that might be interested in coming on, or just or maybe I didn't do it. I think maybe I did. Yeah, so I encourage you guys. Yeah, so it's out there if you're interested. Shout out to Killer Whale Channels. Thank you so much for everything that you do. Killer Whale is a great content creator, and he also has a very he's very intuitive, and he's also he also has a warm spirit. So when you go on to his live streams, I think you will be well received. So thank you so much, Killer Whale Channels. In fact, Killer Whale Channels was one of the first interactions that I had. I one of his live streams, as well as the TR show. So if you're not familiar with the TR show, that's one of the fantastic channels that are out there. And he's also a very warm individual with a lot of wisdom. So those are the two Killer Whale Channels as well. Lots of wisdom there, and lots of positive interactions, always sharing ideas and sharing it can be an uplifting experience, and it'll be what it will be for you. But I encourage you to get to know anyone, check out their pages, check out their channels. They have a lot to offer. Shout out to the Rapper 10,000. The Rapper 10,000, I really appreciate you for coming in and your commentary. I'm going to be spending a little bit more time on your channel. I really appreciate you for coming in. And shout out to Rick Bo's Rides. I'm certainly going to be checking out your channel, supporting more channels. Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. I can't say enough about Chrysler Imperial H. Chrysler Imperial H is very loyal to the Black Spring with Autumn channel. He's very hardworking. He's a moderator on the channel, and Chrysler has great content as well. In fact, I will be spending some time there. And you want to get to know Chrysler Imperial H, without a doubt. He also has a great sense of humor. I mean, I will say that's another common denominator with the content creators that are around here regularly. They also have a great sense of humor, and they can lift you up and entertain at the same time. So shout out to you, Chrysler Imperial H. Shout out to the Definition of Anarchy. The Definition of Anarchy, he goes live. Definition of Anarchy is also a regular on this channel. He's great content. In his views, he's going to be very strong and very, very clear about his views, and he's also very much valued on this channel. And shout out, he goes live as well. He does videos. He goes live. He's definitely someone you want to check out. Very consistent and actually, he's come up quite a few times. So you might see in replay, you can see the Definition of Anarchy on this channel. And of course, go over to see the Definition of Anarchy's channel at your leisure. Eric Chenot, thank you so much for coming in. It's a pleasure to see you around in the stream. I will need to check out your page more. And shout out to Theology Forums. Theology Forums is also a link of another channel of Killer Whale Channels. Just a great set of channels, and check them all out. Take your time.
Hey, Adam.
How's it going?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing well.
What's on your mind today?
Just when I can get the F on out of here and end this self-quarantine, because I just am getting tired of living here in my current apartment. And just for the past almost week, they've had me go into a self-quarantine, all because last week my brother had tested positive for COVID, but right now he's not experiencing any symptoms, because right now he's asymptomatic, if you know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically he is that, and due to that they're having me do a self quarantine myself, and even though I haven't been in any form of communication or close contact with my brother for the past almost 14 days, because the last time I was with him was back on June 3rd of this month. So they're having me do that, and this place is just getting to the point where I just want to get the F on out of here.
So are your facilities closed? Is that what you're saying? Are they still closed because of
Um,
the
all the facilities in the state of Arizona are open, like the gyms, the stores, and that, and the salons, and that kind of stuff. But back on June 3rd, when I had visited my brother, me and him went to Del Taco to go have lunch together. But then last week on June 10th or 11th, my brother had posted to his social media that he had tested positive for COVID, and he had to go into like quarantine for 2 weeks. And during that same day, I had spoke to some people that were coming into my apartment, and I informed them. And because of that, they're having me like spend 7 days in self quarantine because of my brother testing positive, even though I haven't been in like communication with him. Because imagine if me and you were brother and sister, Autumn, and we had seen each other just last month, and we haven't spoke to each other in like the past couple weeks, and you yourself had tested positive, but the people in my the apartment facility had heard about you testing positive and had me go into a self quarantine for 7 days, even though we haven't had any form of communication of any kind. That's what it is, if you
Oh
understand
wow.
what I mean.
Oh wow. Well, it's very unfortunate. I'm very sorry that you're going through that experience. But I would say, hang in there, and I guess you
And
could
that's what I'm doing. I'm
just,
just hanging
just
in
try to.
there. I'm slowly counting down the days to when this is over and to when I can leave here, because this place is just been a pain in my head. But I will say that maybe it's because of me not giving this place much of a fair chance. But um, have you ever paid $3,800 a month for any apartment or house that you've lived at, Autumn, in your life?
Well, I can't say that I have. I can't say that I know that experience.
The reason why I ask is because that's how much I'm paying right now a month is 3,800.
Okay. Do you like the? I mean, did you? Was there a certain reason that you chose that place, or that you like that
Um,
place?
well, the reason why I chose this, and let me go into a detailed description if you're okay. Because you see, last year I was getting ready to go from a huge move from a small city down in Minnesota called the city of Moorhead down to the fifth largest city here in America, which is Phoenix, Arizona. And during that process of me making a big transition from one small city to a larger, excuse me, to a larger city, I was looking for apartments, and because I was making a huge transition in my life from going from once from a small city to a larger city, my people around me wanted me to find the right place, and that's what I kind of did. But they suggested this place that I'm living at right here because of what it has and what it provides. And because this apartment is a supported living assistance apartment for the autistic and the disabled. But was it my first choice? Nah. And because I was moving from a small city that I lived at for 24 years to the fifth largest city in America, I wanted to try to make sure I started my life in the right direction, so that way I got to know the city, and that way I got to try to create opportunities for myself. And this place had a lot to offer, but it's just the way that it's run. It really makes it uncumbersome because, for one, you're not able to have your own pet. In order to have your own pet, you have to have a doctor's note for a supported living animal from a hospital. And two, they don't allow residents to have their own cable and internet. You have to share the same cable internet throughout the entire apartment. So, like, let's say if you were at there, Autumn, only had it to where all residents have to share the same connection, that can cause problems, because would you want to share the same cable internet service in your home or your apartment with 50 plus other residents in the same apartment building? Probably not. So that's what are some of the things. And also, in addition to that, this place is ran like a prison slash a solitary confinement facility.
Wow, that's really unfortunate. Well, I think you should, if you can make a change, you can try. I'm not sure where you would start. If you reach out to those who are in charge, you might come up with, some other options. But I guess I would say, get through the quarantine,
Yeah,
and then just kind of go from there. That would
and
be.
that's what I plan on doing. But the one of the things that I really do love about this building is the people. Because I met so many great people here within this apartment building. But it's just that the way they run it and how much they charge a month, it really has been a problem. And my brother had said like I've been the one that has been creating so many problems, and I agree with him. But I just wanted to start my life out right, and maybe I didn't like fully think about it for myself at first, but I just want to make sure that I was able to come here to Phoenix and know the city, know the community, and know where everything is, like where my local grocery store is, where my closest Walmart is, and learn the light rail system and that kind. I just didn't want to make my life any more difficult than would be if I had just came here, went with a cheaper apartment, and just stayed there, because this place has helped me a bit, but it's just how they run it and how much it is per month is really like a bothersome.
Well, I understand. Well, like I said, hang in there, and just try to stay healthy, or try to get healthy, so that when you come out, that you're not that you're stronger, and that you're as healthy as you were, and if not better. I know it can be a downer, but I think
Yeah.
I think it's still this whole thing is still springing up, and whether it's in pockets, or wherever it is, but just try to hang in there,
Yeah.
and yeah, just try to take your vitamins and take care and stay healthy. I really appreciate you
Yeah.
for coming up.
Yeah, you're an awesome person, and ever since I met you last week, you have had a great channel, and you've been an awesome person getting to know, because the stuff that you put out really is informative, and it really isn't all that bad, because I've seen many other conservatives that go like so far right in that kind, but you like keep it like balance. You keep an equal balance of your stuff without going too far overboard with yourself, and that's what I like about you.
Well, I really appreciate you. I think that these are. I think we want to have a society that's lawful, and we want everyone to be treated as a human being first, and we want our natural and our human rights that are guaranteed by the Constitution. We want those things to remain intact, and we want to, if we can improve on what's established, then we want to do that. But destroying everything that we have, so that another agenda can prevail, ultimately, that's not something that I would support. And it's as I said earlier, the force is strong, but I do think that we, the people, are going to have to decide what are we going to do. Are we going to be free? Are we going to deal with truth? Are we going to deal with social justice? Are we going to deal with ideologies and just tear everything down, and see how long it lasts, and then see if we can recover? I really don't think the nation can withstand that. We've seen the other nations fall that did not have. We do have a unique system, and that is the Constitution. And capitalism. Many of the people that put capitalism down, they've got a lot of things that they have. Capitalism has afforded them all the conveniences, and all of the products, and all of the capital that they have to sustain to give them what they have, you know and I'm not gonna lie and say that historically capitalism did change everything. It's competitive, and for those that cannot, those that choose to be less active or whining and complaining, those people will never be successful in that kind of a society. They won't, because you're not working, you're whining, you're complaining, you're not doing what you can do for yourself. You're not taking advantage. You don't know how to be free. So you have to keep recreating something that's going to hold you back or hold you down. So I yeah, and here again, we're going to be doing more on civic literacy going forward. I mean, we do, that's a part of the platform, and I think going forward, we can all do more individually in our individual communities to try to preempt what is essentially going to be a takeover in our values. We're going to lose. We lose the values, we lose the country. We lose the First Amendment, it's done. If we lose our right to speak, we lose that. If we lose it, because we're teetering right now on it being lost. But I think we've got to be bold. We've got to start standing up. We got to start standing up. We got to start being active. We have to start being informed. I think in order to be active, you need to be informed, and we cannot tolerate these people that are going into these political offices who ultimately are serving the same system that's making us all slaves. I mean, I'm going to get into the whole debt and the economy stuff on another day, but I have a piece that I want to share on the economy. But we are in a perpetual debt, and
But let me ask you this. But let me ask you this. When you do, well, let me ask you this. Who do you think was the person that had created the debt in the beginning, or who do you think was the person that wanted the debt? The Democrats or the Republicans?
Well, see, now I'm going to go back a little bit. That's an excellent question, Angel.
Because both parties complain about debt, but it's just that I don't know if it's the Democrats that wanted the debt to begin with, or because we all know that the Democrats love when there's a big debt in our society, because they love higher taxes. They love taking people's business away. They love doing that.
Well, I'm going to say that I do believe that that the debt, of course, this country has had quite a few wars, quite a few conflicts, but I will say that at least I think when the Federal Reserve basically basically kind of took over the financial took over our ability to control. It took over the components. I think also I can even go back to what we had a progressive president, Woodrow Wilson, when we were no longer when we lost the gold standing, when we basically became debt slaves, when the gold was confiscated. That was done under FDR, because and how was that constitutional? That you were threatened with the idea of being fined or jailed if you didn't give up your gold at the time. And then I do believe that the Federal Reserve, with the country not having its own currency, no longer having its own currency, because we used to be backed by our money used to be backed by the US Treasury. And now the money is the Federal Reserve basically makes the rules and tells the Treasury what to do. And it's just a perpetual cycle of debt. We're borrowing against money. We're just printing money, and it's basically useless. It affects the economy. It affects everything. So I'm going to say, and Woodrow Wilson was a Democrat. Okay. FDR was a Democrat. They all talk about the myth about how FDR saved the U.S. from the Great Depression and all of these things, but he also sat on the economy, and the unemployment rate was huge under FDR. What did he do? He created a ton of government programs. Our money being backed by gold, that went away under his administration. And then, of course, prior to that, you had the Federal Reserve taking over, essentially, from what I understand, taking over the U.S. Treasury. So there again, centralized banking is very communist. Centralized banking is a part of the Communist Manifesto. Karl Marx and Engels. So these are not American values. I'm just saying, but these things were FDR and Woodrow Wilson both were Democrat. So there's your common denominator. I don't know how gold confiscation is constitutional. I don't know. I'm thinking, of course, the Constitution did not set it. We're not supposed to be under the management. Our currency wasn't supposed to be under management of the IMF or the Federal Reserve. That those institutions are not even located on the U.S. soil. It's an international monetary fund, the IMF. So there's a lot of corruption, a lot of people, a huge faction that I think have wanted to take this country down for a long time. And right now we're in a vulnerable state. I think we're on our last efforts. So I think, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know how that party has withstood, how they've been around as long as they have been, for all of the things that they've done to subvert the values of the nation, to make us debt slaves. Because there was a time where we didn't pay taxes. The country actually made money. But that's not where we are anymore. We're a debtor nation. And I'm not sure what's going to be done. I do believe that this administration is doing some things to kind of shift, to kind of take the power from the, maybe even a shift or a switch in which the Treasury has more control or less control. But getting us out of under the Federal Reserve, I think, is probably kicking out the bankers, is what I call it. Kicking out the bankers, central bankers. They're just making us all debt slaves. Who do we owe the money to? Who do we owe the money to? Who do we owe these trillions and trillions and trillions upon dollars to? I mean, it keeps our economy. Our economy it was good, it was solid, it was great, but it could have probably been better, but without all the debt. But like I said, there's a history in that.
Yeah,
I'm probably not.
And you'll probably get to it in another video that you are going to be making in regards to the debt.
Yeah, there's one that I have done previously, but yeah, we have, all the oligarchs and all that stuff. I could get into all of that, but I don't. This is just not this is on this stream, not so much. But I'm saying that we've been under the leadership of at least 2 Democrats that made decisions that, to me, ultimately that have made us debt slaves. And I think that's why there's the taxing is the way the tax system has been affected by it. The value of our currency. These are debt strips that are being printed out.
Yep.
Every time you print one, you've got to keep printing it.
Yeah.
Or we don't survive. So that's a little schoolhouse rock for you. A little disjunct for you, but that's it.
I remember that little short series show. But the one thing one song that I always had got stuck in my head was that I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting on top of Capitol Hill.
Yes, I actually added that. In one of my videos. in which, because the Democrats are always coming to the floor with all of these flimsy ideological, cultural Marxist, and
with all these bills
critical
that
theory based bills.
because look over the course of the time since the Democrats have taken over the House, they have introduced so many bills that they passed themselves that hasn't been approved by the Senate. And why is that? Well, take for example their so-called Equality Act for the alphabet community.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly how is that
HR 5.
I know that yesterday the Supreme Court just passed a 6-3 ruling that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits sex and discrimination, and it now includes gays and lesbians and trans people. Wasn't that something like wasn't that already included to begin with? But I guess it wasn't really that
Possibly.
for the alphabet community.
I mean, you know, the thing about it is, Angel, that they do a lot of redundant bills all the time, and that's why they're the bills that they've come up with, as Pelosi talks about, they're in the hundreds. There's over 200 bills, and they're just projects. They're not
nothing there that will ever like help change things for the better. Like last year, they passed the stop of Trump's national emergency declaration, and he had to use his first veto to get rid of that. And there's just so much, and I know last year that they tried they had passed the bill to try to stop Trump from like some form of association or something with another country. I can't remember what it is, but I know it was something revolving like having Trump not be able to communicate or do anything for like another country. If I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, well, they've done a lot of things that they're bringing to the table in terms of bills. They're not constitutional bills. There are many things that our government is not. Government is not to intervene in every single aspect of life. That's not, the government, they want to, okay, civil rights, those are not God-given rights. Those are governmental rights. They want to create a whole bunch of rights that they make up for this group of people or that group of people and put them on. But then those rights start to infringe upon other people's rights, and they're just not, they're going to have to build.
So sorry to interrupt you, but the only reason why they're like doing these bills for this group of people and that group of people, this community, that community, is for the votes, because all they want to do is continue being in power without even changing things for the better.
Yes, they're not really going to they're not going to get far. I don't think they're going to get far, but as I said before, I'm not sure, some people say, oh, well, it's kind of futile to resist because eventually we'll succumb to many of these New World Order or these UN agendas and all these things. Well, I'm not sure. I think if Trump is in office another 4 years, I think that it's going to crush their agenda. It's going to crush them, and I think that's why they're doing everything under the sun to eliminate him.
I know that I'm not old enough yet, but when I in my later life, if I do decide to be part of Congress or Senate, and then later in my life run for president, I wonder how how they will come towards someone who's autistic, because they can't discriminate me, they can't do anything towards me, and sure, the fake news media can say something about me, but if I ever were to run for president in my later life, and so then I would be the first ever disabled president, they can't really do much about me because they can't discriminate me. They can't say shit about me or any of that. Because I've been called retard and so many other vulgar names in my life. But you know what? It doesn't bother me, because when you hit me, I'll hit right back even harder.
Well, I don't think you need to worry. I mean, I wouldn't think that it's something that you need to to worry about.
Yeah, I know, but
I
I'm just
know,
thinking about it.
I understand your concern.
Yeah. You froze there for a second. You're back.
There's enough American protections already in place. So don't let them manipulate you or try to scare you with any of that. And
yeah.
Very astute.
Well, you kind of froze there for a second there, Autumn.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That happened yesterday. I'm wondering if I'm getting near that. It looks like my internet might be doing something. This is just for a second, but I don't think you need to. I wouldn't be that concerned about it. But if you see anything, and I can't speak for you. Maybe you've heard some things that are concerning to you about what they're doing, or maybe something about what they're planning. But I think you will find the right resources. I don't think I don't think they can do anything to you, and then you'll be protected by the law that's already in place. But you and most importantly, I don't think you'll be manipulated by them, because you're very astute. That they try to use people to advance their agendas, their globalist agenda, what they try to do. So but I really appreciate it, and so just hang in there and be strong. You're very much valued. I really appreciate you for your loyalty and your support, and for you coming on.
No problem, it's always great being here, but I'm gonna get out because I'm about to order some lunch because it's almost 12 p.m. here in Arizona.
Okay, well, I appreciate it very much.
No problem. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Take care. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Angel Munez, the Angel Munez Variety Show, joining me from the stream there. Angel is very much a patron. I want to shout out to the Angel Munez Variety Show. He goes live. He is very thoughtful in his commentary, and he's very, very welcoming. So get to know people on the channel. Shout out to the Rapper 10,000. There's something I want to share with you guys that I haven't shared before. It's an author that I'm finding him to be he's got a lot of experience and he's very well read, and there's a list of people that I think of. There's Dr. Thomas Sowell. This is Shelby. Oh my gosh, and I can't, all of a sudden I just lost the name. Shelby Steele. Shelby Steele is what I wanted to show you. Just a little bit of a clip from one of his interviews that I caught. But Dr. Shelby Steele, I do believe he's a doctor. And then there's certainly Dr. Thomas Sowell. And there are many, many great Black or African American thinkers out there. And their words are not, I think they're the unsung thinkers of this generation. And we're lucky that they're around. So what I would like to do is go to one of those. I'm going to read a couple comments and I'll go into Rapper 10,000. I read that one. The Rapper 10,000 says, I am not an activist or protester. I'm someone who would want to fight a real battle against government tyranny. I hear you, the Rapper 10,000. So I'm going to take you guys over to that. I'll share that screen. As he's got a lot of, it's very insightful what he's sharing. And I want to start that clip. I want to start that clip at the very beginning because it kind of goes into the whole theme in which we're talking about. At the very beginning of this segment, I talked about the Black community and some of the hypocrisy from, of course, the Democrats and the postmodernist views of basically ripping everything down, taking history down. And it's really quite concerning going forward. So I just would like to offer you just a little bit from Shelby Steele on, quote, how America's past sins have polarized our country. I think this is a fantastic interview, and it's very apropos to what we've been discussing so far. So we'll just have a few, I think maybe we'll do about 10 minutes. I'll give you about 10 minutes max of this, and then we'll probably close out the stream. Thank you guys so much for coming on to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Let's see, so I'm going to share this screen here.
Then in 1990, his Traytel building, a new building of the Hoover Institution here at Stanford. A native of Chicago, Shelby Steele taught English literature for a number of years at San Jose State University. Then in 1990, his book, The Content of Our Character, A New Vision of Race in America, established him as an author of national importance. Now a fellow at the Hoover Institution, Dr. Steele is the author of a number of books, including White Guilt, How Blacks and Whites Together Destroyed the Promise of the Civil Rights Era, and Shame, How America's Past Sins Have Polarized Our Country. Dr. Steele is also a frequent contributor to the Wall Street Journal, where he recently published a column headlined, Black Protest Has Lost Its Power. Shelby Steele, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
The protests. Again, you wrote of the players who took a knee during the national anthem in this last football season. They were mindlessly loyal to a black identity that had run its course. Wow, that's quite a claim. Go ahead and just explain what you mean by that.
There is, blacks obviously have undergone in the course of America, the 400 years that America's been around, and victimized black, and slavery and segregation and all those things we're all very much aware of. My point is that out of that came an identity, a group identity that has been, for better and worse, focused, grounded in the idea of blacks as victims. And black victimization has become the sort of centerpiece of that identity. And that identity, I think, in the case of the NFL protesters, is sort of dislodged from reality and functions just pretty much on its own. So once they felt called upon to make some symbolic protest against American racism, they sort of mindlessly went along with that without ever stopping to investigate whether there really was oppression, to what degree of oppression is involved in American life today for blacks. My argument is that not very much. And yet the incongruence of not refusing to kneel for the national anthem when this country, despite its sins, also is a country that for the last 60 years has truly transformed itself morally. And Americans today are different people in regard to all these issues. And I thought the protest was an obsolescent gesture that made that no one found much meaning in.
You said in a recent interview on a Ricochet podcast, quote, "This is not segregated America. I grew up in segregated America, so I know the difference." Yes, quote. Let's talk a little bit about Shelby Steele's a young man. I have a few experiences here that you've written about, notably in Shame, your last book, and that I've heard you talk about because we've been friends for years. your elementary school in a Chicago suburb. Your parents joined other parents in suing to change that. What was that school like?
That school was an elementary school in a school district where there were only two schools. One was all white and one was all black. And we would see the white kids drive to school in the school bus in the wintertime, and we sort of...
You had to walk to school?
We had to walk. We got their textbooks when they were worn out. We got their teachers when the teachers began to have problems, a nervous breakdown or something. They'd be transferred to our school. So
you experienced it.
Yes, it was abusive. It was. There's no doubt about it. It was a horror, and even among segregated schools, this one was particularly bad. My parents did. They actually led the protest. My mother and father organized the parents and boycotted that school, and so there were no students going to it. Eventually they prevailed. The teachers were fired. The principal was fired, and a new school was started up.
So, beginning when you were a little boy, you saw real segregation.
Yes.
And real abuse.
Everywhere.
And protest when there was something to protest.
Well, that's the point, I think. In the 60s, when we think about the protest that sort of became really severe in the 50s and mounted all the way to the 60s. And I think of 1964, the Civil Rights Bill, as the point at which America capitulated and apologized. We were wrong. Here's a huge piece of legislation affirming our commitment to not do this anymore. Now that bill has a lot of problems that have subsequently come to hurt us, but as an historical gesture, it was one of the great moral acknowledgments of any society ever. It was a really remarkable event, and blacks, in a sense, deserve an enormous amount of credit for protesting in that era, because there was no debate in America about whether or not there was racial discrimination. Everybody knew there was. The question was what we were going to do about it. And blacks protest pushed that, I think, all the way to the point where America finally did capitulate.
Rosa Parks was genuinely a great figure.
She was genuinely
Martin Luther King Jr. is genuinely a historic figure.
These people sacrificed enormously. They took every kind of risk imaginable. They achieved something truly great. It was a moment when Black America, as I say in the article, touched greatness. We extended the democracy past the barrier of race. So historically, that was in a sense our gift to America.
Now, you write in Shame about a trip that you took to Africa. At the age of 23, let me quote Shame. This entire trip was organized around visits to cities like Algiers, cities associated with independence movements and revolutions that had swept the Third World in the 1950s and 60s. I wanted to see if there was some counterpoint to the American way of life that was better. And what did you see?
Well, I didn't find that. But I think, I was coming of age. I was a college student. I was just out of college. I was working in war and poverty programs. And there was a point, because after the civil rights victories in the sort of late 60s, where Black people began to create this identity that we called Blackness. And it was angry, and it was resentful, and it was separatist. There was the illusion in it somehow that we would get farther as a separate, unified people than we would by joining America and becoming regular citizens. I confess, I was caught up in that. I wanted to see, and what was so seductive about it is that it said blackness is the answer to all of your anxieties about life, what you should do, where you should I go to graduate school? Well, if you're just really focused on blackness, those issues kind of go away. At least that was the illusion. I was seduced by that, and so yes, my wife and I took a trip to Africa, beginning in Algeria, where we we met with the Black Panthers who were in exile there, and then we traveled south of the Sahara and to Ghana, where Nkrumah had been the president, to Senegal, where Leopold Senghor, these great sort of romantic
anti-colonialist figures,
sort of revolutionary figures, dramatic to their countries. And it was a good lesson, learned very quick. Those countries were not doing well. They were disorganized. They were overwhelmed with corruption. There was no sort of common direction. They were lost. And they couldn't go back to being a colony again, and yet they also did not know how to go into the future and build a new nation. So I learned a lot there. It transformed me. It made me realize that your racial identity is a passive thing. It's not. Your racial identity is not an agent of change. It is not going to build a new life for you. It is not going to do all the things that life calls upon you to do for yourself. In fact, it's a delusion in which you can waste an awful lot of time.
Back to your recent piece in the Wall Street Journal, Shelby. Quote, racism is endemic to the human condition, just as stupidity is. We will always have to be on guard against it. But now, in the United States, it is recognized as a scourge. What has happened is that Black America has been confronted with a new problem, the shock of freedom. Close quote. The shock of freedom as a problem. Explain that.
Well, if you have been an oppressed people, and we were obviously truly oppressed for centuries, we learned all sorts of things in order to survive that. I won't go into a long list, but we learned how to reinvent ourselves. We learned how to live with this oppression, with this sort of negative force in your life. We were, I think, miraculous. We created a great music out of this. We did other things that had a worldwide impact. We expanded the idea of democracy. And made freedom an absolute. We did all those things. The one thing we never had a chance to do, was to live in freedom. We were never free. We were always in a position of calculating our fate through those who dominated us. We were never just free to invent ourselves as we wanted to. And the fact that beginning in the 60s, when we began to confront freedom, when America backed up and said, okay, well, discrimination is wrong, there are a bunch of laws to support that, we're confronted. Well, what do you do with freedom? What are you going to do now? And historically, it scared the hell out of us. We would be fantasizing if we denied that. Who wouldn't be? Freedom is a frightening thing. It places such a burden of responsibility on you, on the person who has it. You're now responsible. Your reputation is based now on what you do. Well, combined with that was the fact that 4 centuries of oppression had left us, in many ways, underdeveloped. So when freedom comes, freedom then says, we're not oppressing you anymore. You're responsible for your underdevelopment. And you fix it or you don't, it's up to you. And that was freedom requires a wholly different orientation toward the world. And we became afraid, and what happens then again, when you're afraid, you don't know how to move forward, you start to move backward.
Shelby, the argument would be, and I know what the argument is because your piece in the Wall Street Journal created, let's put it this way, there was a response on the internet. You can Google Shelby Steele and some of the quotations I've just read, and you will get a response. And the argument would be, no, stop there. We're with you. Everything you've said makes perfect sense right up until you get to the point that we're free now. As you say, the era of Black oppression is over. No, it's not. There's still all kinds of racism endemic to this. Here's some statistics I found. 2015, Black households at the 20th and 40th percentiles of household income, that is lower middle class and pretty poor people, earned an average of 55% as much as white households at those same 2 percentiles. And that's exactly the same figure as in 1967. And so the answer is, Dr. Steele, just look at African Americans haven't made an iota of progress. Of course this has to be because we're still oppressed. How do you deal with that argument, Shelby?
It's a corruption. And it's a corruption because if you look at the statistical difference from then up to now, who says that's because of racism? Maybe it's because you haven't yet developed the value system to the ideas with which to thrive in freedom. Maybe you don't know what to do with the opportunities that surround you. It's understandable. You were oppressed. And people have not pointed out to you the challenge of freedom. And what do people do with freedom when they don't know how to handle it? They reinvent their oppression, even as it has faded away. They make it up in their mind all over again. Racism is around every corner. There is systemic racism. There's structural racism. There are microaggressions, and there's white privilege, and all of this. This is designed again is the shock of freedom, and not knowing. I mean, you look at today's Black leadership; they have no clue of how to move ahead. All they can think to do is ask for more from the government. Well, we've asked for the government has given us almost everything. Nowhere in history has the government paid off its people more than America has in the last 60 years. And yet we are, by most socioeconomic measures, farther behind white America than we were in the 50s, when we had none of these social programs and so forth. So it is, freedom it comes with a judgmentalism. It judges you. If you don't know how to thrive in freedom, it means that you are at fault. You are, and the worst word you can use regarding Blacks, you are inferior. It's a chilling idea, but it's at the heart. It is the heart of the shock of freedom. Because freedom now is saying you can't use oppression as an excuse anymore. If you're not doing well, it's not because of oppression. For goodness sakes, we've got affirmative action. We've got everything to help you. If you're not doing well now, it's on you.
I'd like to thank everyone for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I do find that Mr. Steele is more than insightful, more than intuitive. He's got experience as well. He has experience not just on a domestic cultural level. He also gives you testimony of his own visits to Africa, in which, we hear people we hear people in the black community talking about, of course, things like Africa being the motherland and all these kinds of things. But I'll leave you with this. What's happening in Africa today? And the people that are, that are hailing and holding up Africa, where do the African nations stand right now? Economically, culturally, all of these things. Are you better off here? I would say an emphatic yes, of course. I would say yes. And I can go beyond that, but I'm going to end this segment, and I just wanted to share that insight with you from Shelby Steele. And I also thought that was kind of rounding out the white guilt, the capitulation that we are seeing for many different reasons right now. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next segment of Black Spring with Autumn. So I hope you guys can take a look at everything and look around. If you can subscribe, share. Also, if you are not subscribed, make sure you're still subscribed. And if you dare share this out, that would be even better. And of course, let me know what you think in the comments section. It's always appreciated. And I hope to see you guys again on another segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Take care and have a great rest of your day.